What's up, guys? Before we start, we have to make two excuses. The first one is that Nick's sound, our guest in this episode, was really bad because he was, while we were recording the podcast, in Middle Africa, in Chad. So his sound isn't the best. The second one is that our technical devices weren't working really well, so we weren't able to upload this episode. So we're really sorry. For now, I have talked enough.
What's up, guys?
It's Lara and Joy with the What's Up podcast. What shall I say? Another episode, another guest. He's working for a help organization which is located in over 85 countries around the world. Hello and welcome, Nicholas. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Would you like to give us a short introduction about yourself, Nick?
Yeah, sure. So I am originally from Rockford, Illinois, and when I was 16, I spent an exchange year in near Wuppertal in Germany. And let's see, when I graduated from college, I studied diplomacy and world affairs, and I graduated in 2015. And then in 2016, I joined the Peace Corps as a rural community health advisor in Benin, West Africa. And basically, right after finishing that, I accepted a job with the Carter Center and spent a month at home visiting family. And then in September of 2016, came to Chad to start work. And I've been working for the Carter Center since then.
Okay, that's interesting. You're from America.
Yes.
So how was your life there?
Well, that's I've moved around a lot. So like I said, I grew up in Rockford, Illinois, which is like a medium-sized city. And then I studied in Los Angeles. And then, after that, I was in West Africa. And, it's kind of hard to say because my parents have since left my hometown. So now I have my residency with my aunt and uncle in Wisconsin. So where I officially live is not my hometown, and I don't really know anyone there besides my family.
As you already said, you've been to Germany for a while. And how did it come? Why did you choose Germany?
That's an interesting question. So my school in the U.S. required that all students take at least 2 years of a foreign language, and they offered Spanish, as almost every school in the U.S. does. They offered Spanish and French and German. And I noticed that most of the kids who took Spanish, they just kind of did it to do the requirement and not to actually learn the language. And you would have these kids who took Spanish, 4 years in school and still barely spoke any, which is ridiculous considering that millions of Spanish-speaking people live in the United States. Like, they should have plenty of opportunities to practice. But basically, it just existed so that people could fulfill the requirement. But I did notice that the students who took German really seemed to have some real competence in the language after a few years of taking it. And the teacher was really good and really engaging. And so I took German. And my great-great-grandfather came from Germany, so that was also another reason why I was interested in it. My father visited Germany in the 90s, shortly after, Germany and the Czech Republic, shortly after that country's transition from Soviet Republic. And so it was always just kind of interesting for me. The teacher, like I said, was just amazing. Like, he's won several awards and was just really engaging and interesting and a great teacher. And he could tell that I was really interested in it. It was the only class that I ever really did consistently well in. And I kind of, in high school, was sort of not exactly focused. Like, my grades weren't the best. I was started, dabbling in things that I shouldn't have been doing, getting into trouble. And eventually my father sat down with me teacher supported me with that and helped me prepare and helped me fill out the paperwork. And yeah, then when I was 16, instead of doing my year in the US, I did it in Germany. So.
Isn't German a difficult language? Because I had exchange students from other countries like France or Netherlands, and they told me that the grammar is really, really hard.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I have always really enjoyed it. I speak French now for my work, but I definitely don't enjoy it as much as I enjoy German. German, I find it to be elegant. Like once you understand the rules and like the way the genders and the cases work together and the way the different prepositions kind of all work together, I really enjoy writing and speaking in German. I don't know, it's fun for me. And also, like, it's not like it's Chinese, it's not that hard.
That's right.
Next question. We know that you are very interested in helping other people. And how did you discover your need to help other people? Like, for example, in poor countries like Africa.
What I do now is my job. I am not like some saint or anything. Like, I have a job just like everybody else, and it happens to be here. So I just kind of want to like push back on that a little bit because it's something that I hear a lot, which I think is maybe not the most accurate or productive. But to answer your question, I guess, when I look around at my friends who are my age, I'm 27, and when I see all of my friends who studied like finance or computer science or whatever, advertising, and I see the jobs they have, I'm like, oh my God, I would never want to do that. Like you just get up in the morning and you do something boring for someone else so that they can make money. Like it was just never interesting to me. And so I guess something that's important for me in my career is that I do something that I believe is meaningful and that I know serves a greater purpose rather than making money for someone else.
Well, I think that's a wonderful thought.
Before we came to the call with you, Joy and I already talked about how amazing it has to be to have a job while you can help somebody and not just doing, like you said, something to make money for some big concerns or something. So we think you got really lucky with this one.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty lucky too.
So what I also thought, I absolutely love traveling around the world, and every time I visit a new country, I get to meet new cultures. And you already said that you moved around a lot. Where have you already been, and what was the most beautiful experience you had?
Oh, well, I come from like a middle class background, and my parents both really prioritize that every time we would travel, we had to learn something. And so we, would take different road trips and drive around the U.S. Very fortunate to live in or to have grown up in a country that is extremely large and has a lot of natural beauty that you can visit. So I think that like learning that from my parents, that like every time I travel, I try and like get the most out of it. I want to learn about the history of the place and the food and like the different people and stuff. And so to answer your question, my best experience, I just have to say Benin. Like I lived there for 3 years, and I think maybe some people would be like, oh, why was that so great? It's like not really on anyone's big tourist list, right? Like it doesn't have any, it's not like South Africa or, other like New Zealand or other big like tourist destination countries. But going back to my earlier point, I got to live there for 3 years and really get to know the people. And the first 2 years I was there, I lived in a small village, like by myself. I was the only American there. I really had to rely on the community and learn the local language, get to know the people and learn the history and just kind of absorb it and be there. And having the opportunity to be able to do that is incredibly unique. You know, most people, if they travel to a developing country for work, it's like they kind of live in a social enclave of other expatriates.
But wasn't it kind of scary to leave your hometown and everybody you know, everything, your normal surrounding?
I'll tell you what's scary is staying in my hometown. That's what I was scared of, that I would never leave my hometown.
So you're in Chad right now, is that correct?
Yes.
What made you decide to go especially there?
As my time was wrapping up in Benin, a lot of my colleagues from Peace Corps were definitely ready to leave. They were like tired of living in Benin. They had done it for 2 or sometimes 3 years. But I was not. Like, I still was like enjoying living in Africa. And so I kept looking for job opportunities that would let me stay in Africa. You know, things that require French, things that require a public health background. And when I saw the job posting for the Carter Center, I saw it, and I saw the job, and I saw that it was in Chad, and it was related to public health, and it seemed like something that fit well with my experience, because for my job, I live in the field. Like, I live out in a small town in the middle of nowhere in Chad, and I'm basically just on my own working the whole time. And so given my experience in Benin, I thought that was a good fit. And so, yeah, I applied, and I had applied to a bunch of stuff, and I was kind of surprised when I heard back, and I got the interview, and all of a sudden, bam, I got the job offer in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that is something that everybody understands. I mean, if it's your passion and you get this opportunity, it's quite cool to have the chance to do something like that. So, in order to that, can you tell us what are you doing there?
Sure. So the Carter Center is actually mostly a like a civics NGO. They do like democracy support. Like, that's their main domain. But the guinea worm program is something that former President Jimmy Carter, who founded the Carter Center, that he had personally seen when he was visiting Africa. I want to say it was Nigeria in the 80s with his wife, and he like saw that there were people with just like multiple worms coming out of them every year. It would happen to whole communities. The whole community would be incapacitated by super painful parasites every year. And so for him, that became kind of a personal mission. In terms of my specific role, I supervise around 40 local Chadian staff members who live and work in villages in my zone of responsibility, doing community education and a number of different disease prevention interventions. So we do behavior change. Like, we try to get people to use a filter when they're drinking water that comes from a river or a pond. I also do all of the equipment management for them, so making sure that everybody has all the equipment that they need to do their job. I collect the data. I teach people how to collect the data. We last year introduced the digital data collection system. Up to that point, everything had been paper and pen. So that was interesting, teaching all these people who have never held an Android before how to use a smartphone. And then I write monthly reports, updating everything, updating the Chadian government as well as the office in Atlanta, where the Carter Center is headquartered, on progress, on numbers compared to last month and last year.
That sounds really amazing, and I guess it's a kind of really targeted project, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very targeted program. Like, it's really just anywhere. You know, a lot of people in the different villages where I work will hear like, oh, there's this foreigner here and he is doing healthcare, and so I get people coming to me with all of these different health problems, and and it's like I am really only here to work on one specific thing. So unfortunately, I have to tell those people like, hey, sorry, like I can't help you with this. Like the only thing that I am authorized to treat and to pay for treatment for is guinea worm.
I think that's really, really amazing what you're doing over there and what the Carter Center is doing over there. I mean, you have to start somewhere to help those poor people, to the people who don't know about this disease and can't heal themselves. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
Well, I mean, I also get paid, right? So
Yeah, but like you said, you could have chosen to be anything in America and making money for someone else.
Yeah, but would I be happy doing that? This summer I was staying, I was evacuated from Chad and I was in the US and I was staying with a friend all summer. And he does computer, like website development for a financial services firm. And just like watching the kind of stuff that he had to do, I was like, oh my God, I would never want to do that.
Very cool. And before you worked for the Peace Corps Benin, is that right?
Yes.
And what exactly did you do there?
That's a much trickier question. So to give you and your listeners a little background on Peace Corps, it was founded in the 60s by President John F. Kennedy as kind of a sort of like a soft diplomacy sort of initiative by the U.S. government to enable people in developing countries, recently decolonized countries, most of them, to have face-to-face interactions with Americans that they wouldn't have otherwise had, and to also give Americans the opportunity to learn about countries that most people in America then and now haven't heard of. So those are the first two goals, and the third goal is to provide qualified people who are interested in serving a community outside the United States to help provide these developing countries and their governments with skilled labor. So a lot of my work in Benin as a rural community health advisor, I mean, the first thing that I had to do was integrate, right? Like almost the first year I spent there, I was learning the language and figuring out how to just do like basic life in my village. Like I had to go to a pump to get water. I had to figure out where I could buy food. I had to figure out enough of the local language that I could buy food without, paying a super high price. Like, I mean, I did other things in that period, in that first year, but a lot of my time was spent just like learning and just like spending time with people and like trying to just figure things out. I would also say that first year was an opportunity for me to build trust with the community. A lot of aid programs, they come in and they do one thing and they take a bunch of pictures and then they leave. And so for me, it was important to show that, look, I don't want to do anything that you guys don't want or need. Like I want to make sure that anything that I do with you guys is something that you guys actually want and need. So into my second year is where things like started to pick up with my work, and up until then I had been doing a lot of like community education and working with young people, especially at the local elementary school, and with women's groups at the market. But kind of like the crown jewel of my achievements there was fundraising both in Benin and from the U.S. and getting a grant from an organization that funds projects like what I did to bring solar panels to the local health center. Up until that point, the local health center didn't have any lights, and there was no refrigerator for vaccines or anything. And so with the help of not only the Beninese government, the Ministry of Health, but also the people in my village who chipped in 25% of the cost. We got a solar-powered refrigerator and lighting installed in the health center. So now they can have vaccines stored there and do them weekly instead of monthly, which it had been before. They used to have to bring the vaccines from another village about 2 hours away by motorcycle and coolie. And so you can imagine the logistical problems that poses.
And I think most people don't understand how needed this work is over there. They need somebody to help them to get money there, to just get regular things like water or something. And I think it's really great that you took this opportunity and helped them.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think back fondly to those times. I want to visit soon, but it's a little complicated right now.
Yeah.
Does the virus have any other major impact on your work?
Well, I just got to Chad, and the government mandates a 7-day quarantine, so it's not as stringent as some other countries where you might have to do 10 or 14 days. And after the 7th day, I'll have to be tested again. So, I mean, I would say the major effect is that I'm in a hotel right now and not in the field working already.
Okay. And you've talked a lot about your experience, but can you tell us what was the worst thing you have experienced during the journey of helping?
Okay, I'll tell you a story. When I was in training in Benin, before we moved to our villages, all the volunteers have 3 months of training together in kind of a centralized location. And part of that involves going to the village for 2 weeks to kind of learn about it and then coming back for the rest of training. And during that 2-week period, when I was in my village for the first time and I was still in training, I was sitting in my host family's courtyard, just like whatever, doing nothing, talking with people. And it was the evening, and this lady came by, and she had like a jug of fresh milk. And the other people in the household bought it and drank it, and I was like, oh, that looks great. So I bought it and drank it too. And I got so sick. I was so ill. I had a high fever and I was vomiting and I had diarrhea for like 4 days. And I had to take a really strong antibiotic, otherwise I might have died.
Oh no.
But you know, it was just like I was so ill and I was like lying on this little mattress in this little room, really hot, and I was just like so weak and so sick. And that was in November of 2016. And I didn't have any internet access. But my friend from America called me on my Beninese number in the village to tell me that Donald Trump had won the election.
Oh
And that was
no.
just like the crowning like disappointment. And I was already like so miserable and so weak, and to learn that on top of it, it was like the worst day I could imagine.
Yeah, I bet it must been hard. But can you also tell us what was the most positive thing you've experienced?
I think when I realized that the project for the solar panels on the health center, when I realized that that was coming together and that was going to work out, I had gotten together with the local solar engineer who I had hired and with the director of the health center, and we had like gotten together to talk about it. And we, you know, I realized the money was going to be there, and I shared that with them, and like we talked about the budget and stuff and the timeline. And when we ironed everything out, and I was like, wow, this is really going to happen like soon. This is going to be done. We went out to like one of the local bars, which is just like a little like yard with some chairs and some plastic tables, and we like drank some beers, and we're just like really happy. And they, you know, they paid for my beers, which were not expensive, but it was a nice gesture. And yeah, just like coming to that realization that it was going to happen was almost more exciting than when it actually did.
But I think it's the gesture that counts, like you said. And I think personally that's an experience that you will never ever forget about.
Yeah, I think so.
With your experience in mind, do you think that equal rights all over the world could be possible?
Well, I mean, as you know, I studied diplomacy, so I'm like a student of governments and of political systems around the world. You know, Chad is a country where the people really don't have a lot of rights, and it is one of the least developed countries in the world. Like, even the difference between here and Benin is striking with how much poorer and how much less developed Chad is, and how much the people really do live in fear of their government. So I don't know. I would like to think that one day it will be possible. But I think that we need to focus on the things that we can work on. You know, I'm not going to reform the entire economic and political system of Chad, but I can work on this one thing that I know will improve people's lives. You know, I can't make sure that everybody can live in the kind of political system where they get to participate in their own government, where they have access to affordable health care and clean water and quality education. You know, I can't do those things. I would like them to happen, but it's not something that is in my personal power to do now. And so I think it's important to not be overwhelmed by that and to focus on the things that are in your power to change.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. So we have one last question everyone on this podcast has asked, and that is, what are you doing next Saturday?
I think I will be down in my town where I live in Chad, which is in the south of the country. And yeah, I mean, I haven't been there in so long, so I don't really know what the situation is in terms of like what restaurants and bars are open. But I would like to maybe see the doctor who manages my area for the Ministry of Health, and maybe get some beers with him and have him just kind of fill me in on what's been happening, and kind of like pick things up with him and pick up that relationship, because it's important that we have a good partnership with the Ministry of Health, because they support everything that we do here.
That sounds like a very great plan. So thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciated talking to you. And we think that it's really cool that you are so dedicated to helping others. There should be more people like that.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. See you
next time.
All right. Bye.